Welcome to Snail Story. Some stories begin with a small lie, but end up leading the way to a love that's deeply real. She was a poor secretary who once rented a fake boyfriend to take to a gala. He was an anonymous CEO who unexpectedly became the man she hired, from awkward mishaps to whispered scandals. Through judgments and unfinished pasts, they found themselves walking side by side. Their love wasn't dazzling. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was the kind of love deep enough to heal, strong enough to choose each other again when no one was forcing them to dot. Stay with me till the end of the story. Who knows? You might just find a piece of your own heart in it. And if you're listening from somewhere around the world, drop a comment and tell me where. I'd love to know where this story has found you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel, especially if you're someone who treasures love stories told slowly, gently, and truly. Cleo Marsh never thought her life would take a turn all because of a phone call. Just before midnight, she was curled up in an old armchair, holding a lukewarm cup of chamomile tea, eyes fixed on an email from work inviting her to the company gala. Don't forget to bring a +1. The italicized line at the bottom seemed to mock her like a cruel reminder. Cleo was a customer service phone rep at Lumina Beauty Cosmetics Corporation, famous for its slogan, "Beauty begins with a sweet voice." She wasn't great at dressing up, and even worse, at beautifying herself. These kinds of events felt more like punishment than celebration. But this time, Cleo had to go. And more importantly, she couldn't go alone, because Reed Landon, her ex-boyfriend, now head of sales, would be there, most likely with his stunning, stylish new girlfriend. Cleo refused to be the sad story people whispered about over cocktails, so she typed event companion service into the search bar. Most of the results led to glossy, flirtatious, or outright sketchy websites that made her cringe. But then she spotted a tiny line buried in the listings. Social event companion, discreet, respectful, no questions asked, no strings attached. Simple form appeared. No pictures, no cheesy welcome. Just a time slot, an event name, and a flat rate. $500. Cleo frowned. Too expensive for a lie, but maybe too cheap for preserving her dignity in front of Reed. She tapped call. A deep male voice answered, calm and unhurried. "I'm listening." She cleared her throat. "Hi, I need someone to accompany me to a company gala. Just acting. Nothing beyond that. Do you take those kinds of jobs?" There was a short pause. Time and location. Cleo hesitated before replying. "Bellevue Hotel, Lumina Beauty's gala. Tomorrow night at 7. I'll be there 10 minutes early. Any other requests?" She was surprised by his professionalism. No why? No personal questions. He didn't even ask her name. She answered quickly. No touching. No holding hands, unless necessary. "Just stand next to me. Talk just enough, and please don't draw attention." "Understood. I'm Jasper." Cleo froze, not because of the name, but the certainty in his voice. It didn't sound like someone doing this just for the money. It sounded like someone who chose to do this for another reason entirely. "Cleo," she said automatically, "do I pay before or after?" "After, but only if you're satisfied." She went quiet. No service person says that. "Well, see you tomorrow," Cleo said quickly, hanging up before she could change her mind. She sat still for a long time after the call. Outside, snow had begun to fall gently. Inside her, an odd sense stirred as if she had just signed an unspoken contract, the consequences of which she didn't fully understand. The next morning, Cleo woke up unusually early. She picked out a wine-colored dress and a pair of heels she hadn't worn in ages. She didn't own many nice clothes. Most of her salary went to supporting her younger sister in college. But tonight, she had to look her best. Even if it was just for one evening. By evening, As she stepped into the Bellevue Hotel lobby, Cleo's heart raced. She scanned the room, looking for someone who looked like an event escort. Maybe? Someone tall, flashy, overly charming. But no one fit the part, except for one man wearing a long black coat. Tall, standing calmly beside a marble column, holding a book. Cleo walked toward him, and before she could speak, he said, "Cleo." His voice was just as low and steady as on the phone. She nodded. "Jasper." He nodded back, then gently opened the door and guided her inside, as if they'd known each other for years. No hug, no hand-holding, just like she asked. But one thing wasn't as expected. Jasper didn't resemble any escort she'd imagined. He wasn't trying to be attractive. He wasn't flirty. He wasn't fake. In fact, he didn't check his phone even once. There was only his calm gaze, a smile as light as spring breeze, and a quiet presence that made her despite herself take notice. And in the back of Cleo's mind, a single thought began to form. Who exactly did I just hire? Cleo had never walked beside someone so quiet. Jasper didn't say a word from the hotel lobby to the elevator. He didn't check his phone, didn't ask if she was tired, and didn't compliment her outfit. He simply walked next to her, his pace slow enough, if he was used to matching the rhythm of a woman's high heels beside him. Inside the elevator, trying to break the somewhat silent atmosphere, Cleo spoke up. "I thought you'd ask something like, if anyone asks, how long have we been together? Or where did we meet?" Jasper tilted his head, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Did you already write us a script?" Cleo blushed, rummaged through her purse, and pulled out a piece of paper folded into quarters. Just a few notes. "So we're on the same page, just in case we get caught off guard." Jasper took the paper and scanned it. Met at an old bookstore. Both reaching for customer psychology in the age of 4.0. Jasper is an independent consultant, not tied to any firm. Loves silent films. Allergic to cats. Doesn't eat beans. Do not stare too long at coworker Vicky, she tends to think. Every man is into her. Jasper chuckled softly for the first time since they met. "I didn't know I needed to memorize a love script like I'm prepping for the IELTS speaking test. It's just precaution." Cleo pouted. "Vicky once dragged my friend into a meeting room and straight up asked if he wanted to try a risky night out." Ooh. Jasper folded the paper and tucked it into his suit pocket. "Then I guess I do need to memorize it." The elevator dinged open to a lavish ballroom. Golden light spilled onto the marble floor, and dozens of elegantly dressed guests were chatting and raising their glasses. Cleo swallowed hard. Jasper held out his hand. Effortlessly. This is where the fake relationship begins, right? She hesitated for a moment, then placed her hand in his. His hand was warm, not too tight, not too loose, as if he'd held hers all his life. Let go just to hold it again. Barely 3 steps in, they ran into the first group. Sandro, the nosy HR girl, was laughing with her friends when she spotted Cleo. Her eyes instantly narrowed into target-acquired mode. "Cleo, wow, you look so different tonight." "Ah, thanks." Cleo smiled awkwardly. Sandra's eyes darted to Jasper, her tone rising. "And this is?" "Jasper." He extended a hand. "Cleo's boyfriend." Boyfriend. Another colleague cut in. "Not like temporary or anything." Cleo nearly choked. But Jasper remained calm, like he was reading a menu. "Real boyfriend. She's the first person who made me consider giving up coffee for chamomile tea." Everyone burst out laughing. Cleo turned to look at him. Wide-eyed. Chamomile tea, a habit she'd never mentioned to anyone. How did he know? Before she could ask, Sandra flicked her hair and asked, "So, how long have you two known each other?" Jasper glanced at Cleo, a silent question. "Ready?" She gave a tiny nod. He said, "We met at a bookstore." We were fighting over a book on customer behavior." "That's romantic," someone whispered. A male coworker elbowed Jasper. "Hey, what cologne do you use?" "I've been looking for something that's not too sweet." Cleo froze. Trap. If Jasper named something too expensive, they'd get suspicious. But if he made something up, he could blow their cover. Jasper replied smoothly, "Maison Francis Gentle Fluidity Gold." The group went quiet for a beat. Sandra asked, "Isn't that the one that costs over $400 a bottle?" Cleo let out a dry laugh and cut in, "Ah, Jasper lost his sense of smell during last year's flu season. He just reads names off ads." Jasper nodded in agreement. "I choose perfumes based on how easy they are to pronounce." Everyone cracked up. The tension faded for now. An hour later, Cleo pulled Jasper out onto the balcony to catch their breath. She whispered, "I thought you said you've never done this before." "I haven't." "Then how are you so calm?" "I nearly fainted when Sandra stared at me like she was reading my browser history." Jasper leaned against the railing. Eyes on the glowing city. "I'm used to standing in front of people who ask a lot of questions. What do you really do for a living? I used to pitch to investors. You had a startup." "Used to?" Cleo squinted at him. "Used to? What do you do now?" Jasper turned to her, unreadable. "Right now, I'm standing here, listening to a girl suspect I'm a fraud. And I think I deserve a reward for passing the first round of interviews." Cleo laughed. For the first time that night, she genuinely relaxed. Whoever Jasper really was, for tonight's just tonight, he was doing better than she ever expected. The rare moment of peace on the balcony didn't last long. A hotel staff member came to politely invite them back inside the ballroom for the company leadership speech. Cleo sighed. "This is the part I dread most. Reed's going to get up there and give a speech with that fake, deep voice, like he's the founding father of the Brandyvin, though everyone in the room knows he just finished his first marketing book." Jasper smiled. "If it helps, I could cough really loudly to interrupt." "No, if you do that, Reed will think I hired a bodyguard, not a boyfriend." Jasper shrugged. "I'm actually quite versatile." Cleo laughed, her tension easing a little. Even if it was all pretend, being next to Jasper made her feel like she wasn't carrying the night alone. Inside the ballroom, the lights dimmed, leaving only a spotlight on the stage. The music faded, and Reed landing Cleo's X stepped up in a gleaming tuxedo, wearing a smug smile as if he owned the entire hotel. "Good evening, all my amazing colleagues." His voice boomed through the microphone. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating a wildly successful year, we're looking forward to a future that's about to explode with growth." Jasper tilted his head, whispering in Cleo's ear, "Explode?" He once used that word to describe a tuna salad. Jasper gave a quiet cough, stifling a laugh. Reed went on and on about revenue numbers, Gen Z's strategies, and finally got to the part everyone was waiting for: the announcement of a new strategic investment partner. But instead of naming anyone, he glossed over it, simply stating that there's significant interest from top-tier financial firms. Cleo leaned toward Jasper. "Who do you think's going to buy a stake in my company?" Jasper shrugged. "Maybe someone with slightly expensive taste in cologne." Cleo gave him a suspicious glance, but his face revealed nothing. After the speech, the standing dinner began. Guests spread out to the wine bars, food stations, and conversation corners. Cleo was about to pour herself some water when a strange voice called from behind, "Cleo Marsh, it has to be you. Do you still recognize me?" She turned around. A middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, neatly dressed in a tailored suit, stood with a name tag. Mr. Harold Trask, Executive Chairman, Lumina Beauty. Cleo froze. Hello, Mr. Trask. It's an honor to meet you." Trask smiled warmly, then turned to Jasper. "And you are?" Jasper extended his hand. Jasper, Cleo's boyfriend. Mr. Trask shook his hand, but his gaze lingered a second too long. Jasper, what's your last name? Wynn, Jasper replied, calm and steady. Trask furrowed his brow, then chuckled. Wynn as in Winbridge Capital. That, Cleo felt her heart drop into her stomach. Jasper kept his pleasant expression. Same spelling. But it's a pretty common last name. It is, Trask said, his tone even, eyes locked on Jasper. Though very few Wynns have the habit of stepping one pace back when taking group photos like in the one I saw last week in Tech Wealth Weekly. Cleo stammered. Mr. Trask, perhaps there's some misunderstanding. Trask stepped back with a quiet chuckle. No misunderstanding. Just a familiar face. But you, young man, there's something distinctive about your demeanor. If I'm not mistaken, Miss Cleo here may be accompanied by someone who could alter the fate of this company. He gave a polite nod and walked away, leaving behind a stunned silence. Cleo turned to Jasper, eyes wide. Winbridge Capital. Jasper looked at her. A long moment passed. Then he spoke, slowly. If I told you I'm just a perfectly average guy, would you believe me? Cleo didn't respond. She took a step back. Who are you really? Jasper exhaled. Tonight, I'm the man you hired for $500. As for anyone else, I'll tell you when you're ready. Cleo turned away, picking up her glass of water, trying to steady herself. But every cell in her body was screaming, you hired the wrong guy, Marsh. And he's not just pretending, he might be your company's future owner. By the end of the night, as guests slowly filtered out, Cleo felt like she was in the eye of a storm, with no wind, just the scent of wine, blurred lights, and the cold stares of people who clearly knew more than she did. Jasper opened the car door for Hurst, gentlemanly, but unusually silent. Thank you, Cleo said softly. Jasper nodded. He drove her home, but didn't come inside. Before leaving, he said, if you want the truth, I'll give it to you. But only if you truly want to hear it. And then he left. Cleo stood in front of her small apartment, clutching her purse tightly. Her mind no longer echoed with who is he, but rather, why would someone like him agree to come here for just $500? The next morning, Cleo woke up with a mild headache. Not from wine she'd only had a single glass of red, but from the chaos spinning inside her mind. Jasper Wynn. That name echoed in her head all night, like it wasn't just a person, but an unanswered question. She sat down in front of her laptop and typed in Jasper Wynn plus Winbridge Capital. Within a second, dozens of articles appeared. The mysterious investor with 12 undefeated deals. The most secretive billionaire on Boston's Financial Row. The man who doesn't take photos, doesn't talk to press, and no one really knows what he looks like. Cleo scrolled down. Every article had a different description. No clear pictures. Some said he was born in 1983, others 1987. Some claimed he lived in New York, others swore it was Boston. But they all agreed on one thing. Jasper Wynn had never appeared at public events, never given interviews, and apparently had also never acted as anyone's rented boyfriend. Cleo leaned back in her chair and sighed. So I just paid $500 for a wrong number that went to one of the most powerful men in finance. It sounded more like a Reddit fiction post than real life. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I'm not great at texting, but I think we should meet again. No role play, no pretending. Just to ordinary people having coffee. Cleo bit her lip. She should say no. She was supposed to say no. Instead, she replied with just 3 words. What time? Then. An hour later, they met at a small coffee shop near the town square. Not the kind of place someone like Jasper would usually go just to drink options, black and with milk. and the paper cups almost always had typos on them. Cleo arrived first. Jasper came in after, wearing a gray coat, no tie, hair slightly tousled like he'd just rolled out of bed. "Sorry if I made you uncomfortable," he said, sitting down. "Not quite uncomfortable," Cleo replied. "Just not used to hiring someone and finding out they have a 9-figure net worth." Jasper chuckled. "I can give the $500 back if it'll help. No need. I'm thinking of using it to write a movie script." They looked at each other, a glance that was hesitant, but no longer tense. Cleo cleared her throat. "So why did you really agree to come to that gala? Honestly." Jasper paused for a moment, then said, "Because you were the first person to ever accidentally call my private line." Cleo frowned. "Accidentally? Have a hidden number used to test an internal AI call routing system. No one has that number except our developers. But that day, due to a router glitch, a stray call got through." Cleo's eyes widened, and instead of saying, "Wrong number," you decided to pretend to be someone's boyfriend for the night. Jasper nodded. "Matter of fact, I was curious, and I needed a night off from being myself." Cleo let out a bitter laugh. "I just needed one night without Reed trying to dominate everything. So is it fair? You needed a fake boyfriend, and I needed a real evening." She went quiet. There was no denying that last night had been better than expected. Even if everything had gone wildly off script, before they parted ways, Cleo said, "I don't know what's going on at the company, but if the rumors are true, if you're part of the buyout, I'm not." Jasper interrupted. "I'm not buying Lumina." "Then why did Mr. Trask recognize you?" "Because he's met me before, at a closed-door conference. But I've never signed anything with your company. Never, but planning to." Jasper didn't answer. He just looked at her, unreadable. "I won't do anything that harms you. That's the only promise I can guarantee." That afternoon, Cleo returned to the office, her thoughts in a whirlwind. And then things got even messier when she was summoned to HR. The manager said, "Cleo, there's been some discussion about your personal connection to a potential investor. This raises concerns about a conflict of interest. I just. You'll be placed on paid leave while we review the situation." Cleo left the office in a daze. What just happened? All because of a wrong number. Now she'd lost access to the system, couldn't work, and her coworkers were whispering behind her back as if she were a corporate spy. Cleo went home, dropped to the floor, and buried her head in her hands. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall, quiet, soft, blindingly white. She opened her purse and pulled out the wrinkled piece of paper from that night, the fake love story script. She laughed, even as tears welled up. No one ever imagined that in trying to avoid embarrassment, she would stumble into the life of a man no one dared to say out loud by name. News of Cleo's suspension spread faster than the office coffee machine breaking down. The next morning, she received 17 messages from coworkers, ranging from expressions of sympathy to gentle reminders, like "Stay quiet so you still have a shot at coming back." Cleo stared at her phone screen, wondering which stung more, being misunderstood or being treated like a criminal just because she went to a party with a man who had a 9-figure bank account. She sat in her tiny kitchen, a cup of chamomile tea gone cold in her hand, her gaze blank. Her younger sister, Lainey, walked in, still wearing her oversized university hoodie. "You stayed up all night again?" "Just slept a few minutes." Cleo sighed. "It's not like I have anywhere to go." Lainey placed a bagel on the table, then grabbed her phone. "What are you going to do if you actually get fired?" Cleo didn't answer. Truth was, she didn't know. 2 days later, an unknown number called Jasper. Cleo let it ring until the 3rd minute. Finally, she picked up without saying a word. His voice came through, calm and low. "Cleo, I need to see you." "I don't, just for a minute. You're the reason I might lose my job. People think I leaked internal info, slept with an investor. Do you think I want to see you?" Jasper's voice didn't change. "I'm standing outside the same coffee shop as before. I won't come in unless you say I can." Cleo hung up. 15 minutes later, she pulled back the curtain. He was still there. No hat. Snow was gently falling. Is this man not afraid of pneumonia, or what? She muttered to herself. Cleo threw on a cardigan, grabbed her cold tea, and stepped outside. They sat on the wooden bench in front of the cafe. Neither spoke for a long while. Finally, Cleo broke the silence. "Do you know how I feel right now?" "I do." "No, you don't. I just want to be left alone. I just want to do my job, pay my rent, and help my sister through college. I didn't need someone to walk into my life and turn it into a power game." Jasper was quiet. Then he handed her a thick envelope. Cleo opened it surprised. It was filled with documents confirming Jasper's withdrawal from the Lumina Beauty. Investment deal dated the morning after the gala. "You pulled out." Jasper nodded. "I didn't want anything that would put you in a difficult position. I have dozens of other deals. I don't need another one if the cost is your reputation." Cleo stared at him, her emotions a mess. "Why? There's nothing between us. 'Cause for the first time in years, you made me feel like I was just a normal person." She turned away, letting out a dry laugh by hiring you as a fake boyfriend. Jasper chuckled too for the first time in days. "Well, I think I was a bargain. $500 for a gala date, decent small talk, fake affection, and bonus chamomile tea brewing skills." Cleo shook her head, but her lips were already curving upward. That night, Cleo received an email from HR. "We have received official notice that the Windbridge partnership has been withdrawn from negotiations. Therefore, your temporary suspension will be lifted. You may return to work starting next week." Cleo held her phone, its hands trembling slightly. It had been a long time since she felt this kind of relief. The next morning, she walked back into the office. No one said anything, but everyone looked. One colleague whispered, "She's back." Another, "I heard he dropped the whole deal just because of her." Cleo kept her head up, taking one step at a time. Inside, she was still nervous, but she knew now there was nothing left to be afraid of. At her desk, a small folded note sat waiting, handwritten. "Thanks for not throwing your tea in my face the second time around. I'm learning how to brew chamomile, so it's not so bitter." Cleo burst out laughing. This time, for real. During her first week back at work, Cleo realized nothing had really changed. The coffee machine still leaked. Sandra from accounting still talked on the phone like no one else existed in the world. And Reed, her ex-boyfriend and head of communications, still strutted around with the confidence of someone who believed the company would crumble without his smile. Only one thing was different. She no longer felt alone. On Friday night, Jasper texted, "I've got 2 tickets to a silent film with live piano, no dialogue, no pretending. Just music and images. Want to come?" Cleo stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she typed back, "As long as I don't have to explain why the heroine runs for 10 minutes without ever tripping." That evening, they sat in the third-row center in a vintage-style theater as the piano began to play. Cleo glanced at Jasper, watching him watch the screen, as if he were seeing a world with no deadlines for the first time. Later, when the heroine was being chased by a giant teddy bear in a classic slapstick comedy, Cleo burst into soft laughter. Jasper tilted his head, not scared. "He just reminds me of Reed when he's jealous. Always looming, never quite sure what he wants." Jasper chuckled, then whispered, "You know, I once practiced running like silent film characters. Really, for fitness. No, I thought if I ran quietly enough, I could escape the noise. Cleo didn't laugh this time, for the first time. She sensed that beneath Jasper's calm demeanor was a kind of emptiness, a space where someone had been forced to grow up in silence. After the film, they stopped by a small diner down the street. The menu had just 3 items: baked mac and cheese, mushroom burger, and a mysterious soup the owner proudly called the Unknown. Cleo tried the soup. The taste was strange, not bad, but impossible to name. "What do you think this is?" Jasper peered into the pale gray bowl, maybe a blend of potatoes, pumpkin, and one unfulfilled dream. Cleo laughed out loud. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed this much. When they got back to her apartment, just before parting ways, Jasper said, "I know I'm not simple, but I don't want to hide anything from you." Cleo nodded. "I'm not simple either, but I do make a mean cup of tea." Jasper smiled, something soft lighting his eyes. "Would you like to make one now?" A long silence. Then she said, "I don't invite men upstairs unless I'm sure they'll wash their teacups afterward." Jasper bowed slightly. "I promise. I'll even wipe down the counter." That night, they sat across from each other in her small kitchen. She made tea. He peeled fruit with a fruit knife Cleo had never used before. They didn't kiss. They didn't hug. They just sat in stillness for the first time. Together, and in that silence, Cleo realized something had changed. Not between her and Jasper, but within herself. She wasn't guarded anymore. The next morning, Lainey, Cleo's younger sister, walked into the kitchen and spotted a plate of fruit cut into little heart shapes. "What is this?" she asked, picking up a slightly misshapen apple slice. "Not me," Cleo replied, sipping her tea. "A friend of mine." Lainey raised an eyebrow. "Rental boyfriend or real one?" Cleo paused for a moment, then answered, "Still figuring that out." By noon, Cleo received a courier envelope. Inside was a stack of documents and a handwritten note. "I'm starting a new company. No flashy investments. No forcing anyone out of their role. I need someone like you too. Help build the team, someone who understands people's emotions better than just numbers. If you're interested, think about it. If not, then just stay the girl who makes good tea." Cleo sat in silence. A job offer from a man no one dared say no to. But she wasn't in a hurry. For the first time, she felt like the choice was truly hers. Not for the money, not for security, but for what her heart truly wanted. Cleo stared at the job offer on the table as if it might speak. A job offer from Jasper Winnott, from an HR email, not printed on embossed letterhead and not tied to any KPIs. Just a stack of papers clipped together with a silver butterfly pin and a slanted line of handwritten words. It felt less like a contract and more like a door left slightly ajar, waiting for her to decide whether to walk through. Lainey peeked into the room. "Are you going to say yes?" A handwritten offer from a CEO. Most people would sign it before their hands even dried. Cleo set the paper down. "That's the thing. Nothing with Jasper has ever followed a rule book, and I don't want to lose something real just because." The offer looks tempting. Lainey sat beside her. "You like him, don't you?" Cleo was silent for a long moment. "I think I'm afraid of liking him." That evening, Cleo walked down the street. The snow had melted, but the air was still chilly. She headed to her usual tea shop, and it was no surprise when she spotted Jasper already there, sitting at the corner window seat, in his usual turtleneck sweater, holding a small book. His quiet presence seeming to belong to places where not many words were needed. She walked over. No questions, no explanations. "I read the proposal," Cleo said, taking a seat. "You're planning to launch a green, cruelty-free, affordable cosmetics brand." Jasper nodded. "I've invested in too many things I don't use. This time, I want to build something I actually believe in, and me. You're the kind of person who can talk about a lipstick without making it sound superficial. Cleo laughed. You should hire someone to write your slogans. I'm trying. They ordered drinks. Cleo got jasmine tea. Jasper ordered plain hot water. Cleo blinked. Are you drinking the steam of the kettle? Jasmine. Tea distracts me from the scent of your hair. Cleo nearly choked. Is this a job interview or a very subtle flirtation? Jasper replied, unfazed. I think it's time we start calling things by their real names. After a moment of silence, Cleo said, I'm not great at stepping into new worlds. I do better standing beside them, not too close, not too far. Jasper looked at her, a gaze so gentle it melted every last piece of armor. I'm not inviting you into my world. I'm asking you to help create a new one. I'm easy to unknowers. That night, they walked through the nearby park. Not much was said. The yellow lamps cast long shadows on the cobblestone paths, and the cold made them unconsciously drift closer together as they passed a closed children's playground. Cleo suddenly ran up to the slide. Jasper raised an eyebrow. What are you doing, testing slipperiness? She called back. If I'm launching a soap line, I want to make sure it doesn't cause slide accidents for kids. Scientific, he said. Welcome to Cleo Marsh's curriculum. Mark it? Research through play. She slid down, landing a bit awkwardly. Jasper rushed forward to catch her hand. The light caught their faces. They were only inches apart. Cleo looked at him, saying nothing. Jasper said softly, I won't kiss you if you're not ready. Cleo whispered, The thing is, I am ready. I'm just slightly worried you might kiss too well. Jasper laughed quietly, then leaned in, slowly. Their first kiss wasn't a reward. It wasn't the end of a Raleigh pellet. It was an answer to every unspoken question since that gala night. A few days later, Cleo walked into the office to say goodbye to her old department. Everyone looked at her like they weren't sure whether to congratulate her or be jealous. Sandra whispered, I heard you're becoming brand director at a new company. Got openings for assistants. Cleo just smiled. She packed her things into a small box and stuck a note on the front. I'm not leaving. I'm starting over this time with better tea. When she stepped out of the building, Jasper was waiting by the curb. Car door already open. Cleo climbed in, hugging the small box. You knew I'd say yes, didn't you? Jasper replied, No, but I made tea. And I brought cookies. Tio tilted her head. Where did you learn to make tea anyway? Oh, dude. Channels called tea with emotion. Cleo looked out the window. The city was slowly waking up into spring. No longer the broke assistant who rented a date for a party. No longer the anonymous billionaire who hid behind numbers. Now, it's just a woman stepping into a new life with a man she once didn't know at Allen now never wanted to let go of. The city stepped into March with strange winds not cold enough for a heavy coat, yet not warm enough to ditch the scarf. Cleo entered her new office on the 12th floor, a bright, open space with glass walls overlooking the city below. No logo, no slogan. Just a raw wooden desk, a pot of chamomile tea, and a whiteboard hanging slightly crooked with scribbled words. Company name, TBD. She stood in the center of the room. Hands on hips. Are we really launching a startup? With a whiteboard, some tea, and a CEO in a turtleneck. Jasper appeared behind the door, carrying a bag of sandwiches and his laptop. And me? I'm the company's most valuable asset. Not the balance sheet. No. I know how to make grilled cheese that doesn't burn. In the early days, Cleo and Jasper did everything together, drafting non-toxic ingredient lists, conducting consumer surveys, even brainstorming brand names. During one of their two-person board meetings, Cleo suggested, how about ordinary skin for people who don't need to be perfect? Jasper paused thoughtfully, then nodded. I like it. Sounds like a life motto. Or like what I tell myself every morning in front of the mirror. They hired a small design team, found a clean production facility, and began testing. Their first product prototypes. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until one Monday morning when Cleo walked into the office and saw a woman sitting at Jasper's desk. She wore a sharply tailored dark suit. Her chestnut hair pinned in a flawless bun, and a face so polished it looked like she stepped off the cover of a business magazine. Jasper stood beside her, visibly tense, something Cleo had never seen before. "Cleo," he said, "this is Vivian Kalin, old business partner and my former fiancée." Cleo froze. "Oh," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Nice to meet you." Vivian stepped forward and shook her hand. Her grip was ice cold. "I've heard quite a bit about you." What followed felt like a tennis match. No one announced the start of Vivian. Jasper used to have zero interest in cosmetics. I recall him once saying, "This industry is just emotional packaging resold to people who doubt themselves." Cleo, I thought the same. Until I realized I was the one who bought 5 eye creams out of stress. "Vivian, you're brand director. What's your background?" "Cleo, life. And the ability to tell what's real and what's fake comes in handy when working next to a CEO who doesn't talk much." After Vivian left, Jasper let out a breath. "I'm sorry I didn't warn you. I didn't expect her to show up." "You still keep in touch with her?" "There's no personal relationship anymore. But she holds shares in some of the funds I manage." Cleo nodded. She understood, but that didn't make the uneasiness in her chest disappear. That evening, while Cleo was cooking dinner, Lainey sat on the kitchen counter, snacking. "Are you jealous?" "No," Cleo said, then paused. "Well, not to the point of throwing a wedding dress at her, but enough to wonder, what does she know that I don't?" Lainey grinned. "You really like him." "Yeah." A week later, the design team presented their first draft of packaging. Everyone stared at it, then went silent. The design was unmistakably Vivian's style. Minimalist, cold, nearly devoid of emotion. Cleo glanced at Jasper. He looked stunned too. "I didn't approve." "This," Jasper said to the team. "Who sent them the style guide?" One of the designers spoke up. "Someone named Vivian sent a file by email. Said she was a temporary consultant for the early stage." Cleo's fingers curled slightly. She stood up, her voice calm but sharp. "She's not part of this team. This isn't a project for ghosts of the past. We're building something new from scratch. No one touches it without going through this team." When only the two of them remained, Jasper looked at Cleo for a long time. "Do you think I still have feelings for her?" Cleo didn't answer directly. "I just think I'd like to know if there's someone still standing in your heart, even if just as a shadow." A long silence. Then Jasper stepped closer and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "I've had a lot of people in my life, but no one's ever made me want to start over from the beginning. Except you." Cleo looked at him, a tease. "And this time, there were no defenses left, only trust being placed down, slowly and carefully, like someone setting a precious glass cup on the table." Cleo woke up to 43 missed calls and 76 messages. The first thing she saw when she opened her phone was a scalding headline on a gossip site. From secretary who rented a date to brand director, Cleo Marsh, talent or lucky vase. She sat up, straight, hands trembling as she scrolled down. A clip from last year's Galaware. Jasper had accidentally shown up with Cleo was now going viral on social media with millions of views. The caption read, "Exposed, the new director of Ordinary Skin once rented a CEO as a party date. Is the entire startup just a romantic ruse?" Cleo froze. Not because the secret was out, but because of the way it was told, as if her whole life had been one long, calculated love scam. An hour later, she sat in front of her laptop, reading a crisis report from the outsourced PR team. Jasper sat across from her, visibly tense. "I've hired a legal team to take down the clips. We can issue a statement to explain that the relationship started as a joke, but later." Cleo cut in, "They don't care about the truth, Jasper. They just want something to talk about." Her phone rang. One of the potential investors was calling, requesting a reevaluation of the brand's spokesperson and PR team to protect public credibility. Cleo looked up at Jasper. For the first time, she saw hesitation in his eyes. She stood, voice calm. "If you need to replace me, you can do it now. I won't blame you." Jasper's fists clenched slightly, but he said nothing. Cleo walked out of the office. Spring had arrived with ironic brightness. She made her way to the park and sat on the familiar bench, the one where she and Jasper had first talked after the gala. A little child ran past, dropping a stuffed animal. Cleo picked it up and handed it back. The child grinned and waved. "Thank you, miss." A small gesture, a smile. And Cleo remembered, the world was more than social media and spotlights. That night, Sri opened her phone camera, placed it in front of her, and went live. No filters, no editing. Just her facing the lens. "Hi. I'm Cleo Marsh, and yes, I'm the girl who once hired a man to be her gala date. That man, by coincidence, turned out to be a CEO of a major firm and later, someone I fell in love with. I'm not stunning. I don't have an MBA. My father isn't a CMO. What I do have is real emotion. And that's what lets me speak about skincare with genuine respect for the people who use it, people who've been hurt, who felt small, who just needed a little softness in a hectic world. Ordinary Skin wasn't built to sell dreams. We created it so you don't feel like you have to repaint yourself every morning just because the world told you to. If that makes me unqualified, then I'll step aside." She ended the live stream without waiting for the comments. The next morning, she woke to over 19,000 shares. The hashtag #WeAreOrdinary was spreading fast. The comments were full of heart. "I'm a single mom too. I used to fear mirrors. Thank you. You're not perfect, but you're honest, and that's what I need more than any ad. You don't need to fit someone else's standard. Just be you." At the office, Jasper entered a silent conference room and placed his iPad on the table. He hit play on Cleo's live stream. Everyone watched in silence. When it ended, Jasper stood and said, "If anyone still doubts why I chose Cleo as brand director, watch that video again. No one understands users better than someone who's lived like them. And no one defends what they believe in with their whole heart unless they truly love it." He looked straight into the camera, set up for a press briefing. Ordinary Skin is not stepping back. We're just getting started. That afternoon, Cleo returned to the office. The entire team stood and applauded. No one said much, but their eyes had changed, from skepticism to respect, from politeness to trust. On her desk sat a small gift box. Inside was a single lipstick earthy rose, simple, unglossed. Tucked in was a handwritten note, no extra layers. "Needed because you are already enough." Cleo looked up. Jasper was standing in the doorway, silent. Just a look, calm and steady. And for the first time in days, she smiled a smile that needed no makeup. That morning, Cleo didn't wake up to an alarm. She woke up to sunlight slipping gently through the curtains, the faint aroma of toasted bread from the kitchen, and the soft hum of an old jazz record playing in the background. She shuffled out of the bedroom, hair messy. Wearing only one sock, the other had mysteriously vanished in the washing machine, a mystery still unsolved. Jasper was in the kitchen, wearing an apron embroidered with the words, "Experienced chef," holding a frying pan with the calm face of a man who had conquered chaos. "Perfect timing," he said. "Hey, the yolk's just set." Cleo rubbed her eyes, voice still hoarse. How are you always this TED Talk level composed at 7 a.m.? Because you're the only one who never lets me finish a sentence. Today was the launch day for Ordinary Skin's first product. No grand stage. No celebrity MC. No confetti cannons. Just a small event held in a local public library. Each guest received a notebook, a box of tea, and a free lipstick. Cleo chose the venue for one reason. This was the first place I ever cried because I didn't know who I was. She stood in front of 40 people, mostly everyday women, office workers, teachers, nurses, students, those who had signed up via a simple Google form. Cleo wore a cream linen dress, her hair loosely tied back, no elaborate makeup. She said, "I'm not here to pitch a product. I'm here to tell you, you don't need to change yourself to fit the world. You just need a little time, a little gentleness, and maybe a lipstick to remind you you're alive." After her talk, a 15-year-old girl approached her. "My name's Maggie. This is the first product launch I've ever been to where no one tried to make me buy something." Cleo smiled, "Because I'm not selling lipstick. I just want you to know that feeling enough is already a victory." That night, Jasper drove her to the countryside. On a quiet hilltop with the city glowing in the distance, he laid out a blanket, unpacked a picnic basket, and pulled out a small box, not a ring, a key. "I rented a little house. It's got a garden, a tea plant, enough space to plant the wrong things and dig them back up." Cleo took the key, her heartbeat skipping. "And if I don't take it, then I'll drink tea alone and have long conversations with the mint plant." She didn't say a word. She just wrapped her arms around him from behind, not because she was afraid of losing him, but because she wasn't anymore. 3 months later, their little house had a white fence and a sign out front that read, "Ordinary Home, a place to live as you are." Jasper whispered in Cleo's ear, "What if we held a wedding here? But instead of guests, we invite former customers. You want to invite 200 lipstick buyers to watch 2 people without lipstick get married? Marketing genius. Real wedding minimal makeup." Cleo laughed. "As long as you don't wear a company-logoed suit." In the end, their wedding took place on the lawn behind their garden. No flower wall. No famous singer. Just Jasper in a white shirt, holding a teacup, and Cleo walking toward him in a soft cotton dress. No bouquet in hand. Jasper looked at her. "I used to think I needed a plan for everything. But with you, I just need a reason." Cleo replied, "I used to think I was only worthy of being a side character in someone else's story. But today, I'm the main one writing our next chapter with you." They didn't say forever and always. They simply said, "If one day we forget how to understand each other, let's start again by asking each other's name." And so they lived that way, without scripts, without rush. Just 2 people who once pretended to be in love, who were once doubted by the world, who once stood beneath the weight of millions of skeptical eyesight, chose to believe because they saw something true in each other. When the stage lights fade, when the applause dies down, what remains in love is not the grand gestures or dazzling confessions, but the quiet things: a cup of tea, a silent gaze, or a simple question. Would you start over with me, with no script? Cleo and Jasper's story may have started with a coincidence, with a humorous little lie, but what kept them together was honesty. It was the choice to love when no one told them they had to. And maybe the most beautiful kind of love is the one where you don't have to become anyone else. You just have to be yourself and still be loved. Thank you for listening until the very end. If you found a piece of yourself somewhere along this journey, don't hesitate to share your thoughts and tell me where in the world you're listening from. You're part of the Snail Story community, a place where unhurried hearts find one another. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment so we can keep connecting through stories still to come. See you again in another love that's slow and true.